Gen Z is not lazy. Gen Z is not weak. Gen Z is not entitled. They are overwhelmed, overaware, and emotionally exhausted in a world that never turns off. And once you understand how Gen Z's mind was shaped, their behavior, their anxiety, their humor, their silence, their rebellion, their withdrawing, their refusal to follow old rules, suddenly makes perfect sense. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand Gen Z, you'll realize they are the psychological mirror of the modern world. Gen Z are those born roughly between 1997 and 2012 are the first generation to grow up fully online. No before social media, no before smartphones, no pause button, and that alone changed everything. Before we go deeper, if you enjoy deep psychology, mindset breakdowns, and generational truths that actually make you think, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because videos like this don't just entertain, they explain life. Now let's begin. Part 1. Gen Z grew up during constant crisis. Gen Z didn't inherit stability. They inherited the 2008 financial crash, endless school shooting drills, a global pandemic, climate anxiety, political chaos, economic uncertainty, and a future that feels fragile. While older generations planned for retirement, Gen Z learned early that nothing is guaranteed. Psychologically, this creates a mindset called anticipatory anxiety. They don't assume things will work out, they assume something will go wrong. That's why Gen Z overthinks everything, plans but doesn't commit, is hyper-aware of risk, and often asks, what's the point? This isn't pessimism, it's adaptation. Part 2. Gen Z is emotionally intelligent but emotionally tired. Gen Z talks about trauma boundaries, mental health therapy, emotional safety, more than any generation before them. But here's the twist. They feel deeply, but they're exhausted by feeling. They grew up absorbing everyone's pain online, watching tragedies in real time, comparing themselves non-stop, and being told to heal while still surviving. This leads to emotional burnout at a very young age. That's why Gen Z often goes silent instead of explaining, cuts people off instead of arguing, withdraws instead of confronting, chooses peace over proving a point. They aren't cold. They're protective of their energy. Part 3. Humor as a defense mechanism. Gen Z humor looks strange to older generations. It's dark, self-deprecating, absurd, chaotic, sometimes uncomfortable, but psychologically, it's a coping strategy. When reality feels overwhelming, humor becomes a pressure valve, a way to laugh instead of break, a way to say, I'm not okay without actually saying it. That's why Gen Z jokes about burnout, depression, capitalism, the end of the world, not because they don't care, but because laughing is how they survive. Part 4. Gen Z and the fear of failure. Gen Z watched millennials get degrees, follow the rules, do everything right, and still struggle. So Gen Z internalized a powerful belief. Effort does not guarantee reward. This creates fear of starting, fear of committing, fear of choosing the wrong path. They don't want to fail publicly, and in a world where everything is recorded, failure feels permanent. That's why many Gen Z individuals delay big life decisions, change careers quickly, avoid traditional timelines. It's not indecision, it's fear mixed with awareness. Part 5. Why Gen Z rejects traditional success. Older generations were taught, work hard, stay loyal, grind now, enjoy later. Gen Z watched that model break. They saw burnout, layoffs, mental health collapse, work-consuming identity, so they asked a dangerous question. Why sacrifice my life for a system that doesn't care? That's why Gen Z prioritizes flexibility, meaning, freedom, mental health, personal values. They don't want a job that looks good, they want a life that feels good. Part 6. Gen Z and identity confusion. Gen Z grew up with infinite choices, infinite labels, infinite comparisons. This creates identity overload. They are constantly asking, who am I really? Am I enough? Am I authentic? Am I living my truth? They are deeply introspective but often unsure. That's why Gen Z experiments with identity, with careers, with beliefs, with lifestyles. It's not rebellion, it's self-discovery in a hyper-visible world. Part 7. Why Gen Z values authenticity over authority. Gen Z doesn't automatically respect titles, age status. They respect honesty, transparency, realness. They grew up watching leaders lie, influencers fake perfection, systems fail, so they trust behavior, not words. That's why Gen Z follows. Real people, relatable creators, vulnerable voices. If you try to control them, they resist. If you talk with them, they listen. Part 8. The big truth about Gen Z. Here's the truth most people miss. Gen Z isn't broken, they're responding to a broken world. They feel deeply because they had to. They question everything because blind trust failed. They protect their peace because chaos was normal. They are not the problem. They are the signal. So if you're Gen Z watching this, you're not weak, you're not lazy, you're not lost. You're navigating a world no generation was prepared for. And if you're not Gen Z, understanding them might be the key to understanding the future. If this video gave you clarity, like it, share it, and subscribe for more deep psychological breakdowns like this. Because once you understand the mind, everything else starts to make sense. See you in the next video.